People think the worst part of divorce is the paperwork. It's not. It's not the lawyers either, or the splitting of the furniture, or even the awkward drop-offs in gas station parking lots where your kid hugs you like you're a distant uncle. No, the worst part of divorce is when your child stops looking you in the eye, and you don't know why. That's where this started. Her name's Ellie. My daughter, 10 years old, loves drawing dragons. Used to ask me every night, "Do you think I'm weird or cool?" I always said both. Now she barely speaks unless there's a therapist in the room. And that therapist, Rebecca, she nods along like we're all co-stars in a play, gently guiding the script like she already read the ending. Which, turns out, she kind of had. Let me explain. We're 3 months into court-ordered family therapy. Post-separation. I'm living in a rented duplex with beige walls and a water heater that screams like it's in mourning. Ellie lives full-time with my ex, Janine. We get supervised sessions twice a week. No overnights. Not until the court decides whether I'm stable. Because according to Janine, I'm not. She told the judge I had emotional control issues. Claimed I had episodes. No police records, no restraining orders, no physical violence. Just enough smoke to imply fire. And the fire? Well, it came from Ellie. More specifically, from what Ellie said during therapy. Stuff like, "Dad makes me scared when he looks at me. Dad says the walls talk when he's mad. Dad told me Mom's new friend will burn in hell." Except I didn't. None of it. I hadn't said a single one of those things. Not even close. But the kicker? Rebecca believed her. Not because the words sounded true, but because they were too precise to be coached. Too oddly phrased. Too authentic. I nodded along in those sessions, tight-lipped, jaw-locked, trying not to spiral. But something kept nagging at me. One phrase in particular. It was a Tuesday. Rebecca asked Ellie how she felt about our last visit, and Ellie responded, "He made my stomach feel like I swallowed glass." Swallowed glass. Rebecca gave me a look like she'd just confirmed a blood type. But that phrase? It wasn't Ellie's. Not because I didn't believe she could come up with it, but because I had. Once. Back in college. Janine and I had been arguing about a trip she took with her old ex, Colin. Just friends, she said. But she left out the part where she stayed in his guest room alone for 2 nights. I told her it made my stomach feel like I'd swallowed glass. Her face? Smug. Cold. "You're so dramatic," she said. And now here we were, 15 years later, and that phrase came out of my daughter's mouth in therapy like it had just been written on cue cards. That's when I knew. I wasn't losing my mind. Someone else was building that narrative for me. I didn't confront Janine. I didn't even bring it up in therapy. I did something worse. I waited. See, most people think revenge has to be loud, explosive, like in movies. But the real stuff? It's slow. It's in the pauses. In the details you let other people hand you, thinking they're doing the manipulating. And Janine was a pro at thinking she was smarter than everyone in the room. But even pros get sloppy, especially when they're winning. It happened a week later. Ellie was showing Rebecca a drawing on her iPad, some dragon thing, all pink and purple. Looked like it came straight out of a Lisa Frank fever dream. She left it on the table when they left the room to get water. Just 10 seconds. That's all I needed. The iPad was unlocked. I didn't go through her messages. I didn't dig into private photos. No need. Because right there, on the home screen, voice memos. 6 of them. Each labeled session practice. I pressed play. The first was short. Say, "Daddy's voice gets scary when he drinks coffee." That was Janine. Clear as day. Next, say, "Mommy says it's okay to feel afraid." And if she asks about the hallway thing, say it like we practiced. Like, confused but calm. I stopped it. Cold. Hands shaking. Not with rage. With confirmation. With the slow, ugly satisfaction of knowing I hadn't imagined the setup. She'd been feeding our daughter lines. Building a case. Grooming a narrative. And Rebecca? She was eating it up with a spoon. I didn't steal the iPad. Didn't copy the files. Not yet. Because I had something better in mind. I was going to let them keep going. And then, I was going to let the mask slip. Just long enough. When you let people build a trap for you, they start to get confident. Janine was a master at that. After I overheard the voice memos on Ellie's iPad, something in me clicked over. I didn't feel panicked. I didn't even feel angry. I felt detached. Like a surgeon before the first cut. All I needed was time. And patience. Luckily, both were being gifted to me in bulk. Janine kept pushing in sessions. Subtly, always subtly. She never spoke directly. That was her game. Let Ellie talk. Let Rebecca discover things. I was just supposed to sit there while a version of me, some cold, emotionally unstable ghost, got built brick by brick in real time. The real twist? She believed it too. Not Ellie, Janine. She started carrying herself like someone who had the high ground. Like a woman who wasn't just right, but righteous. And it gave her away in the smallest ways. She began scheduling the sessions later in the afternoon, always on her work-from-home days. She started showing up with notes, literal notes, for Rebecca. Just some things Ellie said that I wanted to be sure we brought up. Rebecca would nod, thank her, and slip them into a folder labeled Gregory Harper, Custody Evaluation. Every time I left those sessions, I'd sit in my car afterward and rehearse what I wanted to scream. But I never screamed, because I wasn't going to win this by defending myself. I was going to win it by becoming exactly who they said I was, just long enough. 2 weeks after I heard the voice memos, I filed for an emergency custody hearing. My lawyer, Jake, looked at me like I'd started chewing drywall. "Greg," he said, closing his laptop, "you want to go back in front of the same judge who's already flagged you as emotionally volatile?" "I'm not volatile." "No, you're calculated." "Which is worse in court?" I nodded, then pulled out a USB drive. "What's that?" "Proof." He plugged it in. Audio clips. The memos. Played one after another. Jake didn't blink. Just sat there listening. Quiet. At the end, he whistled low. "She's gonna claim coaching is standard. That she's just helping Ellie prepare. Let her." He narrowed his eyes. "You got more?" "Not yet." "You planning to?" That's when I told him the plan. Step 1, I stopped resisting. I started acting nervous in therapy. Sweating on cue. Avoiding eye contact. I'd twitch when Ellie spoke. Let my voice crack. Occasionally stare too long at Rebecca, like I was trying to figure out whether she was real. Rebecca noticed immediately. 2 sessions in, she started scribbling more. Looking at me with that, "we're all concerned," expression therapists love to wear like perfume. Janine? She was thrilled. I could see it in her shoulders. That loose confidence of someone who thinks the trap just snapped shut. Then came the home visit. Step 2. Rebecca came to my duplex to observe the environment. Janine insisted it was necessary. She brought Ellie with her. I left the fridge a mess. Pulled some books off the shelf and scattered them on the floor. Let the blinds stay half closed so the room looked darker. I even left the faucet dripping. Rebecca took notes. Ellie clung to her mom's leg. Janine whispered something to her. I couldn't hear it, but I saw the result. Ellie flinched when I offered her juice. Rebecca looked at me like I was holding gasoline. After that, it moved fast. 2 weeks later, court date. Family judge. Same one from the custody review, Judge Halbier. Late 60s, former military, big on structure and emotional safety. Janine's lawyer laid it on thick. "Your Honor, we're seeing escalating instability. Your Honor, my client's daughter has expressed consistent fear. Your Honor, this is a protective measure." Then they rolled out Exhibit a transcript from a session where Ellie described me yelling at shadows in the hallway. Rebecca nodded solemnly when asked if she believed the fear was real. Then came my turn. My lawyer stood up. "No cross-examination," I told him under my breath. "Greg." "No." He sat down. I stood, walked to the podium, looked at the judge. My hands were shaking just a little. "On purpose." "Your Honor," I said. "I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm losing touch." Silence. Sometimes I see things that aren't there. Hear things I don't understand. I try to be okay around Ellie, but it's hard. Harder every day. The courtroom stayed frozen. Janine's jaw tensed. "I think I need help," I added. And then I sat down. No one spoke. Judge Halbier cleared his throat. "Mr. Harper, are you suggesting a formal evaluation? I think that would be smart." He blinked. Twice. Then nodded. "Court orders a temporary psychiatric evaluation at Brookhill Behavioral Center. 48 hours. Observation only." Bang of the gavel. Janine was glowing. Exactly how I wanted her. Brookhill was nicer than I expected. Big windows. Soft lighting. The kind of place that smelled like lavender soap and bureaucracy. The patients weren't deranged. Most were anxious. Tired. Worn down by the same system I was gaming. I played the part well. Calm but vague. Confused but not too dramatic. They gave me a private room. I requested access to a journal for therapy. They obliged. What they didn't know was that inside that journal was a second phone, my own, disguised and muted, camera activated, ready to record. Because while I was at Brookhill, Janine was back home, celebrating. And her guard? Completely down. Brookhill had a rhythm. Mornings started with group sessions, afternoons with silence, evenings with puzzles and lukewarm tea in white styrofoam cups. It wasn't prison. It wasn't freedom either. But it was perfect because it was believable. That's all I needed it to be. Convincing enough for the system. Forget everyone's Netflix-fueled fantasy of padded walls and screaming lunatics. The reality of modern psych observation is far more mundane. Beige hallways, laminated motivational posters, and a counselor named Lyle who says things like, "It's okay to not feel okay." And while I did my little dance, polite, foggy, cooperative, my plan was running on the outside. Two people knew about it. My lawyer, Jake, and Mira. Remember Mira? My cousin's daughter. Early 20s, whip-smart, soft-spoken, and completely underestimated by everyone, including Janine. Mira had seen through Janine years ago. She watched her manipulate conversations at Christmas dinner like it was a parlor game. Mira also happened to be studying digital forensics and freelancing with a private security firm that specialized in marital litigation. Yes, that's a real thing. Before I checked into Brookhill, I gave Mira one job: follow Janine. Not physically, digitally, socially. Track every move. Log every message. Record whatever she could from the lake house cameras I never told Janine I reinstalled after she moved out. Turns out, Janine wasn't just emotionally reconnecting with Colin, her ex. She was still seeing him. And worse, she was parading him around my daughter like it was all normal. Myra's first update came 36 hours into my stay. "You're gonna want to see this." She sent 3 files. A front porch camera clip, Janine kissing Colin goodnight, in full view of the driveway, 20 minutes after Ellie's bedtime. An interior hallway clip, Colin emerging from the guest room shirtless, drinking from the mug I bought Ellie for her 7th birthday. The crown jewel, a voice recording Mira had captured through a back-channel software exploit Janine forgot she'd installed. Colin: "So when's he getting out?" Janine: "Don't know. Don't care. Honestly, I hope they keep him for a while. The longer he's gone, the more stable Ellie becomes." Colin: "You're not worried about the judge asking questions?" Janine laughs: "Please. He just admitted he was hearing voices in court. We've already won." That clip? That was the bullet. I didn't act immediately. That's what made it work. I waited until the official release meeting with my inpatient counselor. Lyle, tall, kind, wore his glasses at the tip of his nose like a cartoon owl. We sat across from each other, plastic fern in the corner, my file open between us. He looked over the top of his glasses. "Gregory, I don't think you need to be here anymore." I nodded slowly. "Soft. Small. I just wanted to make sure." "You were smart to speak up," he said. "That takes courage. Most people wait until it's too late." I smiled, then added, "It wasn't courage. It was calculation." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward. I played the part. Told the court what they expected. "I'm not unstable, Lyle. I've been gaslit for months by a woman who's coaching our child to fear me. And now I have the proof." I handed him a small envelope. Inside, a printout of a Google Drive link and an index of the evidence Mira had assembled. Lyle read silently for a few moments, then looked up. "Gregory, I'm not asking you to intervene," I said. "I'm asking you to understand what's coming." He nodded, slowly. "I believe you." Those words, better than any diagnosis. I left Brookhill at 3:15 p.m. on a Thursday. Walked into Jake's office an hour later with the flash drive in my hand. He plugged it in, played 3 files, and said, "Jesus Christ, Greg. Tell me that's enough." He looked at me, calm, dead serious. "It's not just enough. It's nuclear." We filed a formal motion to reopen custody that night. Not emergency, not expedited. We filed under safety of minor and psychological risk. That phrasing forced the court to assign an independent evaluator. Not Rebecca, not Janine's old contacts. A new specialist with no skin in the game. And to sweeten the motion, we included a notarized letter from Brookhill, declaring me mentally sound, consistent in behavior, and, my favorite phrase, unlikely to fabricate or exaggerate emotional distress. Janine got served the next morning. She didn't take it well. I know because Mira caught a live mic feed of her screaming into her phone for 6 straight minutes. How is he out? This was supposed to be done. What footage? You said he was gone for good. Apparently, Colin had assured her the digital stuff was all scrubbed. Janine forgot she'd used my Amazon account to order their wine and groceries for months. Every doorbell, every camera, every cloud log, still synced to my backup. People forget how thorough digital footprints are when they think they're smarter than the system. The court hearing was scheduled for 10 days later. Enough time for them to panic. Enough time for me to rehearse. Not a breakdown this time. Just clarity. Court isn't built for emotional justice. It's built for procedure. Paper trails. Posturing in press suits. You learn that fast when you're accused of being unfit to parent by the person who once cried while you built a crib together. But this time, I wasn't the one squirming in my seat. Janine sat 2 tables away, arms folded tight over her blouse, eyes flicking between her lawyer and the clock on the wall. Colin wasn't there, obviously. No point blowing his cover in public. But her body said it all. Tense, bracing, one eye twitch away from collapse. My side of the courtroom? Calm. Jake reviewed the evidence once more. Footage, audio files, screenshots of Janine using my synced Amazon Ring account. All time-stamped and digitally verified. Mira even prepped an affidavit confirming the origin of the clips. We had everything. Still, I expected them to play dirty, to lean into ambiguity. They didn't disappoint. The judge, Hal Beer, same as before, entered at 10:03 sharp. Banged the gavel once. Looked around. Let's begin. Janine's lawyer started with the same song she always played, that I was mentally unfit, prone to manipulative behavior, and had recently self-admitted into a psychiatric facility due to a violent episode of confusion. Jake let her finish. Then he stood. Your Honor, my client did voluntarily enter Brookhill Behavioral Center, but not due to instability. Rather, as part of a larger concern that he was being deliberately gaslit by his co-parent. That line changed the air in the room. Judge Halbier raised one eyebrow. Deliberately gaslit. Jake nodded. We have evidence. Would you prefer visual or audio first? The judge leaned back. Visual. Jake reached down, inserted the USB. Let the record show we are submitting Exhibit 4A. Interior hallway footage, dated 3 weeks ago, from Mr. Harper's legally registered smart home system. Footage that remained synced to his personal cloud. The video began. The room went dead quiet. On screen, Colin, shirtless, exiting my old master bedroom, holding the coffee mug Ellie made me in 2nd grade. One Janine kept for sentimental value. Janine didn't even flinch. Just sat frozen, a marble statue in an expensive dress. Jake continued. Exhibit 4B, captured voice memo retrieved from a child's iPad, left unlocked during a court-mandated family therapy session. Your Honor, I'd ask for discretion, as it involves a minor being coached. The judge nodded once. Jake hit play. Janine's voice, say, Daddy's voice gets scary when he drinks coffee. Pause. More audio. Say, Mommy says it's okay to feel afraid. And finally, say it just like we practiced, confused, but calm. It was the last one that did it. Judge Halbier looked directly at Janine. Is that your voice, Miss Harper? She swallowed. I don't recall. He cut her off. It's a yes or no question. Yes, she whispered. Jake didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The same child, Your Honor, he said, who's been making consistent claims that Mr. Harper says the walls talk, that he threatens imaginary shadows. All language clearly introduced. Halbier nodded. Continue. We kept going. Footage of Colin entering and exiting the home on nights Ellie was supposed to be with her mom alone. Text messages between Janine and Colin where they joked about letting Greg implode in front of the court. One gem. He'll fall apart if we just keep the pressure on. It's his style. All that bottled up logic. Watch it pop. But the final strike wasn't digital. It was handwritten. Jake slid a printed affidavit across the table to the judge. Statement from Brookhill's in-house therapist, Lal Hadley, he said, declaring my client mentally stable, cooperative, and, quote, acting strategically under duress to expose a potential custody endangerment. The judge read silently. Then he sighed. And that was the moment I knew. Verdict came an hour later. Ellie would be placed under temporary joint custody, with all sessions monitored by a new, independent evaluator. No more Rebecca. Janine was formally warned that coaching a child would not only result in custody reevaluation, but also open her to potential legal investigation. She didn't blink. She just stared at her hands. The final piece? All evidence related to Colin would be forwarded to the district attorney, with no current recommendation but reasonable cause for inquiry. Helbier banged his gavel. Session adjourned. Outside, in the parking lot, Janine caught up with me. Not yelling, not weeping, just quietly desperate. "Why'd you do it like this?" she asked. I stared at her for a long moment, then said, "You called me a psychopath, Janine. I just played the part." She blinked. Her lip curled. "Do you think this is over?" "No," I said. "I think this is just where I stop playing nice." She started to reply, then stopped, because she knew. She'd spent the last 6 months crafting a lie. And now, everyone knew the truth. It took exactly 3 days after the ruling for Janine to send me a text. "Can we talk? Just us. No emojis. No hope you're doing okay. Just 5 words, hollow and cold." I stared at it for a while. She didn't know it yet, but the version of me she once knew, the one who played her games, who tried to reason with a woman actively warping our daughter against me, was gone. Still, I replied. "My porch. Saturday. Noon. No Colin." Saturday came. Cloudy. Windy enough that the trees sounded like whispers. I sat on the porch with 2 folding chairs, a pot of coffee, and the envelope I'd been working on since my first night back from Brookhill. She showed up late, naturally, dressed casually, hair tied back, no makeup, a move meant to signal vulnerability. I knew the routine. I'd seen her use it in depositions before, back when we were still on the same team. "Hey," she said. "Sit." She did. Sipped the coffee. Then looked at me like she was preparing a monologue, but unsure which part of the audience I was today. "You've made your point," she said finally. "You won." I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't win, Janine. You got caught." She ignored that. Ellie's been confused. She keeps asking why Colin doesn't come over anymore. "You can tell her," I said, "that Colin was a guest in your life, not a fixture in hers." She smirked. "You think this is sustainable? That you can just isolate me out of her life?" I handed her the envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside, a printed timeline. Clean, color-coded, and annotated. All the times Janine coached Ellie. All the phrases she fed her. The edits I'd made to sessions to track emotional regression. A note from Mira outlining potential child psychological markers resulting from parental gaslighting. On the back, a hand-drawn picture from Ellie. One she'd given me the week before. It was me, her, and Janine. Except Janine was scribbled out. Not crossed through. Just faded. Almost erased. "She did this on her own," I said quietly. And when I asked why, she said, "Because mommy only likes when I say certain things." Janine's mouth moved like she wanted to argue, but the sound never came. "She's not scared of me, Janine," I added. "She's scared of getting it wrong around you." Janine looked down at the paper, then folded it. Slowly. "Precisely. What do you want?" she whispered. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. What did I want? Not revenge. Not anymore. That phase ended in court. What I wanted now was control. Not to use it. Just to have it. To stop being the man who had to beg for credibility in front of a therapist who scribbled notes like I was a case file, not a father. I wanted Janine to live with the knowledge that everything she weaponized, our daughter, our therapy, our past, had been turned against her. Strategically. Precisely. And without raising my voice once. "I want Ellie in full therapy," I said. "Not with someone you hire. With the court-assigned evaluator." Janine nodded. "I want final say on her school transfers, medical decisions, and extracurriculars." Another nod. "And I want you to stay 50 feet away from my house unless invited." Written. This time, she hesitated. "Greg, that's extreme. So is teaching a child to lie about their father's mental health." Silence. "I'll agree," she said. "But I want something too." I waited. "I want to see the footage. The rest of it. The stuff Mira recorded." I tilted my head. "Why?" "Because," she said, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I saw something close to shame in her eyes. "I need to know how far I actually went." I stood. "You already do." Then I walked inside and didn't look back. That week, Ellie asked me a question during dinner. "Daddy, are you still sick?" I paused, spoon halfway to my mouth. "Sick? Mom said your brain was hurting, that you couldn't hear people right." She looked worried. Not terrified, just unsure. I set the spoon down. Sometimes grown-ups say things when they're scared, or when they want something to be true. Ellie nodded slowly. Thoughtful. "Are you scared?" I said. But not now. Why not now? Because you asked. That means you're thinking for yourself again. She smiled. Just a little. But it was real. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in months. Safe. A few days later, I got a call from Mira. Someone's been trying to access your cloud, she said. Let me guess, I said. Wrong password 5 times in a row. 6, she said, laughing. Then they backed off. Let it sit. Don't lock the account. Let them know the gates are still open. Why? Because I want her to know the files are still there. That I didn't erase them. That I could go further, but chose not to. Mira paused. You're playing a long game. No, I said. I'm ending one. 6 months later, the story had cooled, but the consequences hadn't. Janine didn't lose custody outright. That would have made her a martyr, and honestly, I didn't want Ellie growing up with a bedtime story about how Daddy took everything. But the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. I held primary custody. Final say. And Janine? She had supervised weekends, monitored calls, and mandatory parent-child therapy every other Friday. The funny part? Ellie didn't protest. Not once. Not even when she had to leave her old school for one closer to my place. Kids notice things. You can spin a narrative, rehearse a script, but eventually, your energy bleeds through. They know who feels safe and who feels staged. And Janine? She was always performing. One afternoon, I picked Ellie up from school. It was raining, one of those wet Vancouver afternoons where the sky just sort of sulks in gray. She ran to the car, backpack bouncing. Guess what? She beamed as she buckled in. We're doing family trees in class. Oh yeah. Yeah. And we had to pick who to put in the roots. I gave her a look in the rearview mirror. And she pulled out a crumpled paper from her bag. It was covered in crooked branches and cartoon faces. My name was written in big letters at the base. Hers right in the middle. Janine was floating to the side. Smaller. Off to the right. Like a cousin or an aunt. I didn't know where to put Mommy, she said. We don't do things together anymore. I didn't say anything right away. Just kept driving. But later, after dinner, I stared at that page. And realized the therapy hadn't healed everything, but it had cracked the illusion. Ellie was unlearning the lies, replacing scripts with real thoughts. Hesitant once, quiet once, but they were hers again. Meanwhile, Janine? She was unraveling. Not all at once. Janine didn't do public drama, but in small, crumbling pieces. Mira kept an eye out. Not spying, just tracking digital ripples. Turns out, Janine had started seeing Colin again, then stopped, then tried dating someone new, only for that guy to find a Reddit thread about the custody case. Janine always underestimated how well-documented a modern scandal is. You don't need to go viral to be searchable. She tried to pivot, joined a healing circle, posted inspirational quotes on Instagram, started a blog about co-parenting through trauma. Her readership? 3 likes. 1 from her sister. 1 from an account with a dog avatar. 1 from Colin. Mira and I laughed about it over coffee one day. You ever gonna nuke her? She asked. You still have the files. I stirred my mug. No need, I said. She's doing it herself. In slow motion. Ellie had another session with the court-appointed therapist. This one was different. Progress check. Full debrief. I was invited to join the last 10 minutes. Her name was Dr. Callahan. Kind eyes. Measured tone. The type of person who could deliver devastating insights in a voice barely louder than a hum. Ellie's showing strong signs of emotional resilience, she told me. She still has questions, but she's not afraid to ask them anymore. I nodded. She still believes in both parents. But she's learning that people can be wrong and still care. I let that sink in. She asked me. The doctor continued. Why adults lie about feelings. What did you tell her? That sometimes adults don't know what they feel. So they pretend. And pretending too long can hurt other people. I looked over at Ellie, coloring in the corner. She's gonna be okay, I said quietly. She's getting there, Dr. Callahan replied. 3 weeks later, something happened that I wasn't expecting. Ellie brought up Brookhill. Out of nowhere. Over pancakes. Daddy. Yeah. Was the hospital scary? I didn't flinch. Just set my fork down. A little, I said. But not because of the place. Because I didn't know who to trust. She tilted her head. Like Mommy. I hesitated. Kind of, I said. But also myself. I wasn't sure if I was still making sense. People were saying things that made me feel like I couldn't tell what was real. She nodded, as if she already knew. I'm glad you came home. Me too. She smiled, took a big bite of pancake, and said through a mouthful of syrup, "You don't talk to the walls." I laughed. "Thanks for the confirmation. You talk to your coffee sometimes. But that's okay." On my birthday, Mira showed up with a gift. A leather-bound notebook. Empty. Heavy. Real. "What's this?" I asked. She shrugged. "You used to be a writer. Thought you might want to start again." I didn't open it right away. Just held it. The last time I'd written anything personal, it was a therapy journal Janine eventually quoted out of context to a custody mediator. This time, it would be mine. Completely. Final update. I moved. Not far. Just out of the house Janine and I bought together. Too many echoes in those walls. Ellie helped me pick the new place. She picked her room, her paint color, even named the tree in the front yard, Marshmallow. Don't ask why. The house is quieter now, but honest. And sometimes, when I sip my coffee in the early morning light, I think about that fake diagnosis. That courtroom performance. The way I leaned into her fantasy just long enough to dismantle it from the inside. She told the world I was a psychopath. So I became one, just long enough. Not for revenge. For clarity. And when it was over, I handed the truth back, piece by piece, like puzzle shards no one could rearrange to suit their story. The end. Subscribe to the channel